Today, we welcomed new members into our midst, and by so doing, each of us reaffirms the bonds of covenant that unite us as a congregation that is in association with Unitarian Universalist congregations all across the country. When we welcome new members, it's a time for each of us to pause and ask the question that was posed by A. Powell Davies. Is this your religion? And if so, what are you doing with it? Davies served as minister of the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. before, during, and after the Second World War, and was considered to be one of the most prominent voices of liberal religion during his time. His question is as much alive in our own time as it was in his. Davies described our faith as being the consummation of thousands of years of religious history and the beginning of something new. He described a religious faith unbound by fear and false belief, a faith unbound from the hates and greeds that divide us, a faith unbound by ignorance and prejudice, a faith of freedom for equal justice, freedom to seek the true, the good, and the beautiful. And then went on to ask the question that is as much alive in our own time as it was during his, a time that is torn by fearful cruelties and enmities, hate and bitter prejudice, the need of such a world, of such a faith as ours. Davies asked, "Is this your religion? If so, what are you doing with it?" For me, it comes down to three qualities of being, ways of living in community and in the world: covenant, commitment, and courage. Covenant is at the center of our faith and at the periphery. It is in the middle and on the margins. It is the web of relationships which hold us together in our ongoing quest for truth and meaning, a web spun of the fiber of love. Covenant is our mutual promise to journey together in service of a common good. Covenant binds each to the other and each to all. It is an expression of our profound interconnectedness. Now, a covenant is a living thing, and as living things do, it changes. It changes as we change and as our world changes. And at the same time, it's important to articulate the promises being made in the joining or the making of a covenant. And this congregation adopted a provisional covenant at the annual meeting in June of this year, deciding to live with it, to live into it, and see if it fits. So we'll be revisiting this. But the words of the covenant that binds us today: we covenant together in the spirit of love and freedom. We gather in safe and compassionate community, seeking our spiritual truths. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and create a thoughtful and harmonious voice for liberal religion. Through the practice of our 8 principles, we promote social, economic, and environmental justice and continue our legacy of respect and acceptance. This is the covenant that we are in together. The covenant among congregations that belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association is found in Article 2 of its bylaws. Who knew that bylaws could be a sacred document? But in Article 2 of the bylaws, which is also known as the principles and purposes, you'll find our principles and sources. And these same bylaws call for a periodic review of Article 2, a review that is taking place even as we speak today by the Article 2 Study Commission. The current statement of 7 principles and at first 5 sources were adopted in 1984, and a 6th source was added in 1995. Otherwise, there have only been minor revisions. You could say they have stood the test of time. But I would also have us consider that the world is different than it was today in 1984 and 1985. Does anybody remember 1984? 1995? Are you the same as you were then? And just think of all the change our world has been through in those years. We are different people as we were then, and as the UUA's Board of Trustees says, we are now well into the first quarter of the 21st century. Our association has grown in its understanding of systemic oppressions such as racism, ableism, and heteronormative beliefs. However, many people feel the language of Article 2 does not reflect these learnings. The board believes we need a new Article 2, which leads us into the future. The Article 2 Study Commission has issued a draft statement. Bear with me, still recovering from COVID. Not testing negative, but still have lingering symptoms. So the board believes that language is outdated, and a new draft has been issued, and it looks different from what currently exists. Brandy's going to bring me relief. Thank you. So while it looks different, it has echoes of the past and is cast in language in a form that we can carry into the future. You all take such good care of me and each other. So the first change is that the proposed draft take care of your new members this way too, please. So I will whisper my sermon. The proposed draft renames Article 2 as Purposes and Covenant. It also names a constellation of values that we hold in common: justice, generosity, evolution, pluralism, equity, and interdependence. At the center of this constellation is love, as love is the enduring force that holds us together. In this, we hear echoes of some of our historic covenants which begin. Love is the doctrine of this church, or love is the spirit of this church. The study commission will present its final draft to the UUA board in January for inclusion on the agenda of General Assembly 2023. If it passes by a 2/3 majority at 2023, it will then go on to GA 2024 to be voted again to become the new Article 2 of the bylaws. Whatever changes to our covenant that come about, changes in language or changes in form, what will remain constant is love. Love as a quality of being and a way of living in our congregations and in the world. Which brings me to the second quality of being, which is commitment. We often talk about the 3 commitments of membership being 3 P's: presence, participation, and pledging. Presence means being present in Sunday worship as often as possible, either in person or online, on Zoom, or maybe catching up with the recorded sermon later on Facebook or YouTube. I think of a sermon as a conversation starter. Presence means being present for the sacred conversations that we are having together, conversations about matters of worth, which is ultimately what worship is about. Participation is about taking an active part in the life and the governance of the congregation by participating in religious education and social justice activities and serving on committees or boards or teams. These are the activities that enrich our personal spiritual lives and deepen the bonds of the communal life that we share. Pledging means making a commitment of financial support, each according to their means, and each Sunday, we say that the offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. And I say that truly it is the pledges of generosity that keep the Free Church free of outside agendas. It keeps us free to set our vision and our mission. It keeps us free to serve our values and our covenant. So these 3 commitments, present, participation, and pledging, are the lifeblood of the liberal church, and I maintain that they are also the lifeblood of civic society, and we are very much needed in our world today. And there's a deeper commitment. The 3 P's are about things that we do. The deeper commitment that I'm talking about is the quality of being and a way of living. It's about the commitment to show up with love, even when the going gets tough. It's those thorns on the roses that we give to our new members. It's about the commitment to show up with love, even when the going gets tough. It's as the Jewish theologian Martin Buber so wisely said, humans are promise-making, promise-breaking, promise-repairing, and promise-remaking people. The commitment to show up when covenant has been broken, as it will. The commitment to show up and do the work of repair and the remaking of covenant takes courage. The word courage comes from a Latin root, which means heart. To have courage is to have heart, a brave heart, a heart broken open by the world's beauty and its pain, a heart that feels compassion, a heart that suffers with the broken, suffers with the oppressed. To have courage isn't to be without fear, but to meet fear with faith that we are held through all of life's challenges, held by each other, held by an infinite source of love. Author and social activist Bell Hooks wrote, "The moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom, to act in ways which liberate ourselves and others." In other words, courage is the choice to love, and brave is what we make each other. So in the end, it all comes back to love. Covenant, commitment, and courage are all centered on and grounded in love. Love is at the center of our faith and at the periphery. Love is in the middle and on the margins. It is the very fiber of which the interdependent web is spun. If perchance any of us should be asked, "Is this your religion?" And if so, what are you doing with it? May we answer, love. May it be so, and may we make it so through our living. Amen, and blessed be